The first fine was small, $25. The letter said our trash bin had been visible from the street too long. It wasn't worth arguing about, so we paid it and moved on. HOAs had rules, and sometimes those rules were strict. But then another letter came. This time it was about our driveway. According to Karen, the HOA president, there was a surface appearance inconsistency. The fine was higher, $50. Again, we paid it. Fixing the issue seemed easier than starting a conflict. Then the notices started arriving faster: mailbox paint, lawn edging, garden lights. Each letter came signed by Karen, and every fine grew larger than the last. Soon we noticed something else. Karen's car began appearing on our street almost every morning. She would slow down near our house, sometimes stopping just long enough to look toward the driveway or take a photo with her phone. A few days later, another violation would arrive. Inspection, photo, fine. At first, we assumed it was coincidence. But when the total crossed $1,000, the situation felt different. We attended the next HOA meeting, hoping to understand what was happening. Karen sat at the front table with her usual binder and clipboard. When we asked why the fines were escalating so quickly, she gave a calm smile and said something that made the room uncomfortable. Standards must be enforced consistently. But strangely, other houses on the street had the same violations, and none of them were being fined. That's when we realized something. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was building a case. After the meeting, the fines didn't stop. They multiplied. Within 2 weeks, we received 4 more violation notices. One said our grass was half an inch above HOA standards. Another claimed our mailbox was too reflective in sunlight. The explanations started sounding ridiculous, but the numbers kept climbing. $100, $150, $50. Each letter warned that continued violations could lead to enforcement actions. Karen's morning patrols also became more obvious. Every day, around the same time, her car rolled slowly down our street. Sometimes she stopped near our driveway, writing notes on her clipboard before driving away. And almost every time she did that, another notice appeared. Soon the total crossed $5,000. When we tried to dispute the fines, Karen rejected the request almost immediately. According to her email, our property had repeatedly failed to comply with HOA standards. A letter that changed everything. It wasn't a fine, it was a lien notice. If we didn't pay the balance, the HOA could place a legal claim against our home. That's when we stopped treating the situation like an HOA dispute and started treating it like evidence. We installed a small security camera facing the driveway. Within a week, it captured something interesting. Karen wasn't just driving by. She was walking onto our property, taking photos, measuring things, and leaving before anyone noticed. The next morning, she returned again, but this time the camera was recording everything. And what she did next would stack HOA fines into a police report. When we reviewed the camera footage, the situation stopped looking like an HOA dispute. It looked like trespassing. The video clearly showed Karen walking into our driveway several times during the week. She carried her clipboard and phone, moving around the property while taking photos. At one point, she even measured the edge of the driveway and wrote notes before leaving. None of that was mentioned in the HOA rules. We saved every clip, and then something happened that pushed everything over the edge. One morning, Karen arrived earlier than usual. The camera showed her stepping out of the car and walking toward our garage. She circled the driveway, stopped near one of our parked cars, and bent down near the tire. A few minutes later, she drove away. That afternoon, we discovered one of the tires had been completely deflated. At first, we couldn't prove what had happened, but when we checked the security footage again, the moment was right there on the screen. Suddenly, the situation wasn't about fines anymore. It was about harassment and property interference. We contacted the police and showed them the footage. They asked us to keep recording and confronting her directly. The next morning, Karen returned for another inspection. She stepped onto the driveway again, then with clipboard in hand, completely unaware that 2 patrol cars were already on their way to the neighborhood. The fines had gone too far, and Karen was about to find out exactly how far. The next morning looked like every other morning in the neighborhood. The sun had just risen, the street was quiet, and Karen's dark sedan slowly rolled down the road like it had dozens of times before. From the security camera's view, she parked across the street and stepped out with her clipboard in hand. She walked toward our driveway with the same confidence she always had. Karen probably expected it to take another photo, write another violation, and send another fine. But that morning was different. As she stepped onto the driveway and approached the parked car, two police patrol vehicles turned the corner and pulled up behind her. The flashing lights immediately caught the attention of several neighbors who stepped outside to see what was happening. Karen froze. One of the officers calmly walked toward her, while another spoke with us near the porch. We showed them the security footage on the phone again. The clips of Karen entering the property, inspecting the driveway, and tampering with the tire. The officer watched the video carefully. Then he turned back to Karen. Within minutes, the situation that had started with HOA violation letters had turned into something far more serious. The officer informed her that entering private property repeatedly without permission and damaging property could be considered criminal activity. In front of half the neighborhood, Karen was placed in handcuffs. The same neighbors who had watched her patrol the street every morning now stood in their yards watching something very different. For months, Karen believed her fines gave her power, but power built on intimidation eventually runs out. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with an HOA leader who pushed their authority too far? Share your experience in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, like, subscribe, and share so more people learn how to stand up to unfair systems.